just about everything at some point in time needs some level of real estate. I mean, even if you're using your kitchen counter, there's you're going to have some space at some point in time.
There comes a point in time when a lot of businesses start in the garage. Google started in the garage, Amazon started in the garage. But there comes a point where it no longer facilitates effective work habits. It's a bad image for your clients if you're out trying to gain more confidence and stability and create a presence for yourself. So there comes a point, and each individual business owner can kind of figure that out based on their needs, their products, their services. But there is a point, and usually 99.9% of the time business owners realize that, and then it starts a new gut-wrenching ordeal for them because now they're going to have to start outlaying cash, whether it's a sole proprietorship, an LLC, or whatever form the company is. Now they're going to have to start paying somebody to house their business, and that's an emotional and costly venture to start. Mm-hmm. There's furniture, there's internet, there's security systems, there's all sorts of things in there. And when they start looking at that, it starts to cause some heartburn.
Yeah, I would imagine. Now, I guess that first step, when I was talking about getting that momentum, I mean, first, I guess you must understand what type of business you have and maybe what you would need.
Correct. If
you're owning a real estate company, you probably don't need a restaurant space.
No. It depends on your services, your products, what you're doing. If you're doing a retail business and you can do a just-in-time manufacturing, or you're a middleman, you can probably keep that going in a smaller office space and just do it on the internet. But if you're doing any type of public interaction, a retail space, warehousing, or just you have now more employees that can fit in your garage or around your dining room table, or your wife or your spouse says, you got to get out. We want our house back. Then it's time to do it very cautiously. If you're going to be growing, obviously you don't want to be in a long-term lease. If that's just a big obligation. A lot of these smaller companies don't have what we'd call great financials, or they haven't been in business a long time, and so when they go look for space, they don't quite have what a landlord's looking for. And that's one of the key things that a broker can kind of help you put together, assemble, sell. When you're a tenant broker, you end up not selling anything. What you're doing is helping them search and find space. And then as a tenant broker, you're selling your client to the landlord. So they're going to help package up the small business and present it to them to say, hey, this is why you want this tenant in your business park.
Mm-hmm. So when you start working with somebody and you talk about, I guess, selling a tenant, what does that mean? Because to your average business owner, they are the tenant.
Yes.
And so you, in some ways, become their salesperson, which I guess, even to understand that is a good first step, because if I'm going to give somebody money, why would I need to sell myself on them?
Right. Well, it's one of those where if a broker will explain this to you when a small business comes in, the landlords have quite a bit of financial commitment in getting any tenant into the space. Even if you're looking at 1,000 square feet on a 3-year term, let's say, the landlord has lease drafting costs. They have to pay commissions. Tenants don't pay the commissions. The landlords do. Then there's new carpet, paint, maybe a wall moved. There's probably a couple months of rent concessions in there. So and we've talked about this before, gross lease value. When the landlord is signing a lease at, say, $15 a square foot, truly the landlord's yielding maybe $12 a square foot on that. And so, but they have all that out-of-pocket cash out of pocket up front, and they don't want the tenant to be a questionable security risk. Mm-hmm. So if the tenant fails in the first 3, 6 months or year, the landlord has amortized all those costs out over 3 years. And so at the end of the first year, if the business fails, the landlord has to kind of take that in the shorts, or they go back and they seek legal recourse to make them whole. So that's why a broker is very important for small businesses out there. I know it's a tough decision to make, but you need a broker, a good commercial broker, focusing on the area in which the tenant is looking. So if it's office, find an office broker. Retail, find somebody who specializes in retail. Same with industrial or flex space. And a flex space is office with warehouse.
Why is it so important to find somebody who specializes? I mean, I talk about specialization all the time, but when you talk about a lease or the type of office.
Yeah, if you're looking at retail, there's 2 or 3 different types of retail lease. There's just your gross lease, your triple nets, and then there's your percent rents where they start negotiating over total value or total gross sales volumes. You want somebody who's experienced at that to help you work through that 6%, 5%, 3%, the break points, things like that. Industrial, again, a specialty with the power, the taxes, utilities, things like that. Office, same. So it is very important for these for businesses to find if you're if you're going to be shopping for a horse, you don't want a car salesman to help you. They don't know anything about horses. Mm-hmm. So it's just one of those. Find somebody who's got years of experience in it. It's that simple.
Matthew Royal joins us, President and Managing Broker with Royal Commercial Corporation. So, Matthew, as people start to go down this process and they, I guess, understand the type of space they need, understand maybe the square footage and things of that nature, and they understand the broker that they need to do, what are those first steps that a good broker is going to take them through? Because a lot of times, I mean, I've seen friends do this. I've seen lots of people do this. You're afraid because you don't know what you don't know.
Correct.
And it's very difficult for somebody to jump in and go, gosh, I'm going to go rent some office space for my business that I really hope makes it and tie myself into something that could be devastating financially. In fact, it could kill the business if you start spending all your money on office space.
Absolutely. And that's one of the reasons when you call and you vet or discuss with your broker and you're trying to find somebody to represent you, it's best just to be clear, open, and honest and say, look, I'm just out looking for space. I haven't decided on who I'm going to represent, who's going to represent me. I'd like to take 30, 45 minutes of your time and have a coffee on Tuesday and meet with the broker, just chat with them. The questions they should ask you is, tell me about your business, tell me about what you're doing, find out a little bit about the broker. But in order for that broker to represent you properly, they have to know your business. They have to know who you are.
Which is interesting because, I mean, right off the bat, to have somebody who's interested in knowing and knows about your business and your business goals is so much different than being the order taker that is, well, I need this amount of office space. Great, let's go find it.
Yeah, it's a difference between being a service provider and a tour guide, because anyone can go on to, tenants can go on to CBA, Commercial Brokers Association, do some queries and searches and come up with some properties. That's pretty easy to do. But actually to vet the properties beforehand, make sure the floor plans work out, make sure that's a good landlord, help formulate your case. When you approach a landlord, it's like a chess game. And the first move of the chess game is going to tell you pretty much how it ends up and every move thereafter. So if you come in kind of shooting from the hip or winging it, landlords are going to look at that. And they do property every day. Mm-hmm. They do it 10 times a day.
And it's their business. I mean, they're not in there for charity.
No, they're in there because they have to make money per square foot. And their objective is to get their asking rate or as close to it as they can. And the tenant's job or the broker's job for the tenant is to make sure that they get the best deal for the tenant that will work and keep the business surviving.
Sure. And well, and another point, I think, is the owner of the building, even though he owns a building, may not be wealthy. In fact, no. I mean, they could be trying to make these rents just to make the mortgage payment on their building so that their family can kind of survive. I mean, there's been a lot of people who have been over-leveraged in commercial real estate. And I think the thought process for most people, if you're a small business, is, well, I'm going to go look at this building. The landlord is a rich guy, right? Yeah. And so now it's this idea that, the
rich taking from the poor.
Right, in some ways. But really, the building is like a tool, and the guy who owns it, maybe, who knows where financially they are.
He could have all sorts of family troubles, too. He could have financial debt. He or she, they have a mortgage on the building that they have to pay regardless of whether somebody's in there. They pay the property tax, the maintenance, the triple nets, the operating expenses, gardening, landscaping, water. They pay that every month whether somebody's in there or not. So they have a vested goal to get somebody in there and lease their space, but it's got to be on profitable terms for them, or maybe on the first few leases a break even for them so they can get some activity in the building. But no, the old misperception of landlords are all wealthy, they're not. They're business people too, trying to make their way.
Matthew Royal joins us, president and managing broker with Royal Commercial Corp. Matthew, we have a couple minutes left, but so when somebody goes in and they start this, negotiation process, I mean, I know when you're doing residential, you oftentimes try to find out about the seller, why they're moving, things of that nature.
Yeah.
Is this a similar thing? I mean, do you go in and you try to understand what's going on in the building owner's life, or is it really just about the numbers?
It's about economics. It's sheer economics. There's nothing personal in it. And one of the main differences you can kind of tell between residential, when you sit down through residential broker, there's a form that's already filled out for you. I mean, check the box, move on, check, initial, move on. In commercial real estate, it's all free form. It's all, hey, this is how we want to massage this. We want to take some rent concessions here and there. There's no static way of doing business. And even though somebody may have done 2 or 3 leases in their life as a business owner, it's still so fluid all the way through. And you've got to be on your game to know if you're going to push money over here, you take it back over there. It is truly a chess game, as well as a sales job, and making sure that the tenant's fully informed as you go through what an estoppel certificate is, what are the operating expenses made of? Do they include broker's commissions in the operating expenses? Do they pay for the landlord's medical benefits in the operating expenses? All those little tiny things that truly add up to 5, 10, 20 cents a square foot over time.
Mm-hmm.
So,
which may not seem like a lot on the front end, and then all of a sudden you realize, well, that's a couple $1,000 a month or whatever.
Yeah, and then it increases 3 to 5% every year thereafter. Plus, there's no cap on it. It just goes on and on. So that's the big difference in one of the big differences in commercial and residential, which is it's free form. You just have to kind of go with it and understand what the tenant needs and what the landlord hopes to get.
Yeah, and I would imagine making sure, even going back to that first step, making sure that you need office space and it's not going to kill your business.
Absolutely,
must be a real big point. I know that. In something that I've done, we looked at office space, and we realized, we should probably outsource this first in order to determine, we didn't want to get tied into something too long.
No. And
so we found some other ways, and you were instrumental in helping us realize that.
Well, that was the right thing to do. I mean, we went out and we evaluated size, locations, costs. When you pencil it out, it's like, hey, that's not the right business move for us to make right now. Maybe in 2 or 3 years, we revisit it.
Because getting office space is actually kind of high risk.
Oh, it is.
It really is.
Yeah. It ties up a lot of your capital. It ties up a lot of your future capital. And then you look at your FF&E, your furniture, fixture, and equipment costs. There's phone systems. There's furniture, copiers, printers, office supplies, chairs. Lord, that adds up real quick, and that comes out of Hip National.